Candid Sports.
What if the Miami Dolphins didn't suck because of poor management, drafting, player development, free agent signings, or coaching? Or poor tackling, pass coverage, run coverage, throwing the ball, catching the ball, running the ball, blocking, punting, kicking, kickoffs, or kickoff coverage? It is because they were hacked by the Russians. Hacked election? That was just a distraction while they went after the real prize, the NFL, and apparently the AFC East. The Dolphins hired Adam Gase in 2016, pictured here in a hat. You get a middle school track coach. And he coached like one in 2017 and 2018. But then take off the hat, let a little premature balding set in, put him in a suit, introduce him as the New York Jets head coach, and you get Vladimir Putin Jr. And the worst part is they want us to know. But why? Now some of you will say the Dolphins have sucked since around 2004, and Adam Gase wasn't hired until 2016, so Putin Jr. has nothing to do with the Dolphins sucking. But you're wrong. That's what the Russians want you to think. It's all part of a coordinated effort to make sure Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots continue to dominate the NFL. Which the Patriots still have to win once they get into the playoffs after winning the AFC East, and then still win the Super Bowl. But of course they can, because while every other team has to battle through a tough 16-game schedule, they know they will win the AFC East, because the Russians hacked the Dolphins. Which doesn't fully explain why the Jets and Bills never compete for the division title. It must be because the Russians knew that the Dolphins in the post-Dan Marino era were ready to compete for championships and couldn't let that happen. Though the Dolphins weren't much of a championship threat during the actual Dan Marino era, basically 1984 and 1985, which was the year that Russian heavyweight boxing sensation Ivan Drago made his US fighting debut, facing off against former heavyweight champion Apollo Creed.
He dies.
Oh, how else does a 6th-round draft pick, pictured here, become a 6-time Super Bowl champion, 4-time Super Bowl MVP, 3-time NFL MVP, a model, husband to a Brazilian supermodel, and his own web series on Facebook? Russian training, that's how. And after building their killing machine, the Russians went to work on the Dolphins quietly. What else would explain the Dolphins drafting Ted Ginn Jr. with the 9th overall pick in 2007? Or Deion Jordan with the 3rd overall pick in 2013? It had to be the Russians. This is the real reason Nick Saban left the Dolphins to go coach at Alabama, because they were hacked by the Russians, and he refused to run the team into the ground like the Russians tried to order him to do. So Saban left town, and left the Dolphins in the hands of a series of coaches who ran them into the ground. So any college football fan that's not a fan of Alabama or Clemson, you are a victim of the Dolphins being hacked by the Russians. In 2012, it all changed. The alarm was raised. The Russians could no longer sit quietly on the sidelines when the Dolphins drafted Ryan Tannehill, who was clearly going to surpass Tom Brady and take the AFC East from the Patriots and the Russians. So the Russians had to literally get on the sideline. Which doesn't explain why the Dolphins made the playoffs in 2016, or why Tom Brady has a losing record in Miami. Thought this was some miraculous ending to a game in which Dolphins fans would hold on to forever, like the 1972 undefeated season? You're wrong. The Patriots finished the 2018 season 11-5 for the 2nd seed in the AFC, behind the Kansas City Chiefs by 1 game. Had the Pats won the Week 14 game in Miami, they would have been the number 1 seed. Meaning the 2018 AFC title game would have been in New England, and the Pats wouldn't have called the coin toss in overtime, where they marched down the field and scored without Patrick Mahomes getting the ball. So Kansas City fans, you are victims of the Dolphins being hacked by the Russians. And now the Dolphins are in more disarray than ever, or something close to that. And now the Dolphins have turned to Brian Flores, an understudy of Bill Belichick, where the Russians' hacking of the Dolphins will continue. And now the Russians have also turned their attention to the New York Jets, with their talented roster with great players like Sam Darnold. And Tom Brady can continue to win till he's 55. But wait, There's more. It has been reported that the Jets hired Adam Gase after Peyton Manning called them to advocate for him, because Peyton Manning has been hacked by the Russians, which wouldn't explain why Manning has a winning record against Tom Brady in the playoffs. Peyton Manning made his first career start September 6, 1998 against the Miami Dolphins. How is this related? It just is. The reason Drew Brees didn't sign with the Dolphins? Because he found out they had been hacked by the Russians. Then Drew Brees led the Saints to a Super Bowl victory against Peyton Manning. Yes, the New Orleans Saints, the same team that drafted Peyton Manning's father, Archie, who is also Eli's father, who defeated Tom Brady in the Super Bowl twice. How is this all connected? It just is. So Dolphins fans, your team doesn't suck. They've been hacked by the Russians. So if you've ever watched the Miami Dolphins, Tom Brady, or Peyton Manning play, ever seen them in a commercial, a print ad, seen a picture of them, overheard someone talking about them, know someone who has ever talked about them, even when you were not around, or even know of their existence, then you've probably been hacked by the Russians.